A passionate movement for justice is finding itself swept under the feet of rampaging and destructive mobs.
Just going out and destroying cities is not an answer.
Police have been trying to stop the looting.
I am the descendant of looted people from Africa. We built a nation on looted land from the native people here. We are looting the natural resources of countries around the world to this day.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Ralph. I'm deputy editor of Politico magazine, and I love talking about history, politics, and culture. Our new series, The Backstory, will dig deeper to give you more context about some of the biggest news stories of the day. Many consider 1968 one of the most turbulent, traumatic years in modern U.S. history. In April, civil rights icon Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, roiling the nation and setting off protests and looting and rioting in cities across the country. This was all happening against the backdrop of the Vietnam War, which by mid-year was killing 45 US soldiers a day. Many are comparing this to today. We're seeing our cities roiled by anti-racist demonstrations against the backdrop of a global pandemic that's killed more than 100,000 Americans. I talked to two historians to tell us a little bit more about whether they think history's repeating itself. Hi, Michael.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Can you see me?
I can, yes.
Good. Hi. Do you see similarities to 1968? How similar do you think the 2 years are, and what are the big meaningful differences?
So, I don't think they're similar at all, and I might be in the minority on this. In 1968, you had a crime context that made the law and order narrative very appealing for Blacks and whites. But after 2 decades of dramatic decreases in the crime rate, that context is not there. And so I think it has allowed a new, robust, and radical even discourse around police reform that would not have been available in 1968.
My activist career started with the March on Washington and all the organizing. And it took them months to pull together. And just think of what happened with George Floyd, where within days, a larger set of demonstrations than the March on Washington were organized mostly by young people.
You see a lot of different kinds of people who are now out there taking that risk and giving their time. New polls show that a majority of Americans approve of the message behind the protests. What does that signify to you?
It's not that we're in this post-racial society. If anything, we're in a society where people are extremely conscious of racial and cultural divisions, but they don't see those as necessarily barriers.
Let's talk about the white community and white elites. Do you see them changing their stance as well? Because this is all in the context of President Trump really trying to reinvent Nixon's law and order rhetoric for his era. And this is one of the reasons, you're mentioning one of the reasons why it potentially could not work for his benefit. But I'm curious, do you see law and order becoming a more polarized race issue right now?
If anything, it will become a partisan issue. I was surprised to see Mitt Romney marching and yelling Black Lives Matter, and more white political elites in the Democratic Party are calling for dramatic police reform, including defunding the police. And that's dramatically different also from the 1960s, where you had in the Democratic Party white ethnics who were in charge of police departments at the time, who feared police reform, saw it as an attack on their own power and their own liberty.
The Kerner Commission found that this civil unrest was really brought on by very clear incidents of police brutality. And yet, here we are again, decades later. I'm wondering what didn't happen then that needs to happen now.
I think in the mid-60s, when Johnson launched the War on Poverty and the Great Society programs, that was one direction. When Nixon came in and with Spiro Agnew and the Southern Strategy, that was another direction. Those were choices.
The lack of documentation allowed white political elites on the right in particular to race bait, to use coded language, to explain away the police brutality. It's hard to explain away police brutality when you're watching someone's knee on someone's neck for about 8 minutes. To see someone do that to another human being, I think that does focus you. I think that does change you. I think that does shake your spirit in profound ways.
Do you think that there's cause for optimism right now?
I feel optimistic in the sense that one of the advantages of our century is that we can communicate in ways that were not possible before. Technology, though, is neutral. It can be used and make the world less equal, less just, but it can also contribute to a yearning for freedom, that can't be stopped.